warning for this video, talking about what all narcissists do at the end of a relationship. For those of you who are still in the relationship, those of you who haven't been through it yet, those of you who don't know, it may shock you. But I'm not going to waste too much time. I'm going to get into it. I'm going to give you the answer. I'm going to tell you what it is that all narcissists do at the end of a relationship. Doesn't matter what you've done for the narcissist. Doesn't matter what you may be doing right now. Doesn't matter what you're planning to do for them. Doesn't matter what you're tolerating from them. Doesn't matter how much they've abused you. Doesn't matter how much of your time, energy, effort, money and resources that you have invested into them. None of that matters. Because at the end, the result is still going to be the same. At the end, they're going to blame you. And it doesn't matter who you are, what you've done for them, what you've put up with from them, what they've done to you. None of that makes a difference. Guaranteed that in the end, the result is always the same. And it doesn't matter who you are. If you are in a relationship with them, if you are in their family dynamic, if you are the closest person to them, if you are their source of supply, and at the end, they're going to blame you. Because who else are they supposed to blame? For their shortcomings, for their failures. Of course, they're going to blame you. And yeah, it doesn't matter what happened, how extreme the situation was. Just like as some of the most famous, or maybe that's not the right word, some of the most well-known narcissists of all time. Just like a Hitler, Stalin, Mao. Do you think any of those dictators were blaming themselves for the millions of people that they killed? Of course they weren't. Despite everything that everyone was doing to keep the countries together and running, they were not blaming themselves. It does not make a difference, the scale of it. It doesn't matter what or how much you did for them, or how badly they treated you. If anything, that just makes it even worse. The more that you've done for them, the more that you've invested in them, the more that they've abused you, the more extreme it was, the more that they're going to blame you. If it was just something mild, if you only invested a little bit into them, you weren't with them that long, or if they only did something minor to you, they're not going to care too much, they're not going to blame you. It's only if it's something more. And the more extreme it is, the more that they're going to blame you. And this is something that all narcissists will do at the end. Unless, of course, as I've said before, if you're the side chick, if you're just a secondary source temporarily, if you're a one-night stand, those types of people do not get blamed. They get glorified. They're idealized permanently. Because they didn't get too close to the narcissist. Not in that way, not emotionally. The people who do that, they get blamed the most. They just get looked down with contempt. They're just nothing. Garbage, ants to the narcissist. They're nothing, they're nobodies. And that's how they treat you in the end. Like you are nothing. The closest person to them always gets blamed. While you're with them, they treat you as their parent, as their caretaker, as this person who is supposed to take care of them and do everything for them. And that is until you start to see through their mask even more. While they're already devaluing you, you start to wake up out of the trauma bonds, out of the devaluation. You start to catch on, you start to love yourself more. Now that's when they really start to blame you. That's when they really start to smear your name. Because image and reputation is everything to a narcissist. It's everything, because that's quite literally all that they have. They don't have anything else. They don't have anything within. And that's why it's so important to them. That's why they'll fight you tooth and nail to prevent you from exposing them. That's why they've got to beat you to the punch. Because of course they know that they've gotten so much out of you. And they haven't reciprocated. And they've just been abusing you. Of course they know that. And they want to protect their image, not only for other people, but for themselves as well. They still want to go out feeling perfect, as though there's someone who can't do anything wrong. And of course, for them to do that, they have to have someone to blame. And remember, they have an arrested emotional development, a black and white mentality, all or nothing, good or bad, right or wrong. So for them to be perfect, good, right, you have to be bad, wrong, flawed. And that's why they dump that all onto you. They hold you accountable for everything. Even things that you didn't even do wrong. But anything that you did do wrong will be exaggerated and blown out of proportion. Because they need to paint you in a bad light. They think in terms of good or bad, hero or the villain. And in their minds, they are this hero who has conquered you, defeated you, vanquished you. That's quite literally how they think. Of course, deep down, they know that they're bad. They're very insecure, and that's why they lash out in that way. That's why the things that they do are so extreme. Because of course, I mean, a real hero is going to be causing all of these casualties. They're not going to be causing all of this destruction. They're going to be preventing that from happening. So deep down, they do recognize that yes, they are a problem. Yes, they're causing a lot of destruction. And that insecurity is what drives them to just blame you even more. To just hold you accountable for everything. Because it's either you or them. But by knowing this, it should let you know that they're not going to get very far. Because think about it like this. If someone's holding you accountable for everything, you're always responsible, you're always to blame. It's never them, they haven't done anything wrong. They don't need to improve, they don't need to be better, they don't need to correct anything. You think that's going to get them anywhere? As I've been saying since the beginning of this channel, accountability is the key to success. If you were to be successful, take accountability. Even if something happened to you, something was done to you, still take accountability. Even if it's not your fault. Because then at least you can do something about it. You can make it better. But that is something they're never going to do. They're always going to put it onto someone else. They'll go off, find a new source, and hold them accountable for everything. They'll expect them to do the work for them. But one thing they won't do is do the inner work. They're never going to look within. And that's so you should know that they're never going to change. They're never going to improve. They're always going to be the exact same way. Doesn't matter if you were with a narcissist when they were 20 years old. If you saw them again in 50 years, they would still be the same. They would still be that exact same person. They wouldn't have changed. And of course they wouldn't have changed because you did all of these things for them. You helped them in so many ways. You upgraded their lives. They caused all of these problems for you. They abused you. They deceived you. They lied to you. They future faked you. And in the end, they took accountability for nothing. They didn't take accountability for anything at all. Now tell me, how is a person like that ever going to be successful in anything? Of course they're not. If they ever do achieve anything in life, it will be at the expense of someone else, and it will not last for long. This disorder, this disease, this sickness does not produce long-term success. They've got to have an enabler. They've got to have a codependent. They've got to have someone who they are running into the ground. That's the only way that they can get anywhere. So anyone that they're with is going to be absolutely miserable. They're not going to be having a good time at all. They're going to be very anxious, going to be stressed, they're going to be depressed. They're not going to be feeling good about themselves at all. And that's just how it goes for them. Wherever they go, the sickness follows them. Wherever they go, everyone around them is getting sick. Everyone around them is absolutely miserable. Just as we were when we were with them. But then as soon as we get away, as soon as we part ways, what happens? Things get better. We become a lot happier. We feel better about ourselves. We felt absolutely miserable we were with them. Always anxious, always stressed. All of these problems to deal with every day. What a miserable experience. Yeah, that's what they had to offer to you. That's what you had to go through. That's what you had to deal with. Never forget it. Always remember it. Never forget what you had to deal with. Never forget what type of person they were. Because that is the same person that they're always going to be. Doesn't matter if they come back to you or if they're with someone else. It's not going to change. That's always going to be them. They're always going to have that sickness, that disease where they just bring people down. They make you feel miserable. They don't make you feel good about yourself at all. But how do you feel when you leave them, when you get away from them? You feel happy, you feel free, you feel empowered, you feel like you can take on the world. You feel so much better without them. And they know that. That's why they devalue you. That's why they triangulate you. That's why they lie to you, future fake. That's why they do all of the things that they do. That's why they do that. Because they recognize it, they see it, that you are disappointed in them. They know that they have failed you. They know that they're never going to be good enough for you. They're never going to make you happy. You're never going to feel comfortable around them. You're always going to be walking on eggshells. You're always going to have to blame yourself. You're always going to have to think of yourself in a negative light just to coexist with them. And yes, of course, they see that, they know that. And it makes it very difficult for them to lie to themselves. It makes it very difficult for them to be delusional. And that's why the moment they begin devaluing you, they're already seeking out a new source of supply. They've already got someone else on the side. Someone else who they are idealizing. Someone else who they are mirroring. Someone else who they are getting to idealize them. Because they want to feel worthy. They want to feel like they can make someone happy. But of course that doesn't last for long. And they've got to have someone else who they're abusing, manipulating, saying that you're no good. And then they've got this other person on the side. So that even while they're doing that to you, these horrible things, they're making you feel miserable. Even though they're doing that, they've got someone else to validate them at the same time. And this is how they stay delusional. This is what they have to do. And of course that helps them when they've got a new source. when they've got all of these enablers and flying monkeys that they're smearing your name to. It helps them to devalue you, to make your life hell, and still feel good about themselves, still portray themselves as the victim, despite everything that they got from you and everything that they did to you. They can still do that. Because now they've got these enablers and flying monkeys and the new source to validate them. It all helps them to remain delusional, to remain in the false reality. But yeah, if they discard you, you should be thankful. You should be very happy with that. Because at least then the problem's out of your life. And I mean, that's exactly what they do. They come to you, they infiltrate your life. And suddenly now there's a problem that wasn't even there before. Now you're not feeling too good, you're not feeling too happy. You're feeling like something is wrong with you. You weren't feeling that way before that person got involved in your life. But this is what they do. They come into your life, they cause problems, they bring you down, they make you feel miserable, anxious, stressed out. And they feel very insecure about it because, of course, I mean, any functional, developed human being you should be able to make someone feel good. You should be able to balance out what you're getting from them. You should be able to validate them. They shouldn't be feeling down, depressed, anxious. If they feel that way, that must mean that the other person is just a pathetic excuse for a human being. Of course they know that, they're very insecure about it. And that's why they have to devalue you. Because they recognize it at the beginning that they're not making you feel good, they're not making you feel happy. They are making you feel anxious, they are stressing you out. And then they feel it then, it's overwhelming them, it's overpowering them. And they're like, no, don't put that on me. Don't let it make me feel that way. And what do then? They devalue you, they point the finger at you. They say it's all your fault. And then of course, towards the end of the relationship, everything just blows up. Everything goes wrong. And again, they feel extremely insecure about it. They don't want to be blamed for that. They don't want to be blamed for ruining yet another person's life. So they just put it all onto you. They blame you for everything. They hold you accountable. They do it not just to avoid the consequences of their actions, but also to avoid the shame. Because that is a very painful part of it for them. Of course, when they're doing these things to people, of course, it triggers a lot of shame. It makes them feel inadequate. It makes them feel completely worthless. A worthless, useless human being. That's what it makes them feel like. So of course they're going to deflect that onto you. But for them to do that, they have to be in denial. They have to live in a fantasy world. They've got to have a false character, because the reality is, you did so much for them. They did very little for you. That's the reality. I mean, they came in with practically nothing, left with a lot more. You came in with a lot and left with very little. And as I said before, the person who comes in with very little and leaves with a lot is typically the narcissist. While the person who comes in with a lot and leaves with very little tends to be the victim. That's just how it typically goes. But yeah, with no accountability, no reflection on their shame, too afraid to face the consequences for their actions. Do you really think a person like that is going to get very far? Of course not. They're not even looking within. They're not even accepting themselves. They're not owning up to their own actions. They're not showing up as themselves. They're not taking accountability. They're just non-existent, non-present. How can a person like that develop anything? How can they succeed in anything? To succeed in anything at all, at first you've got to be present, you've got to show up, you've got to be there. You've got to have acceptance, you've got to accept the state of things as they actually are. You've got to accept reality. You've got to accept yourself. Things never get better for them because they remain in denial. They deny themselves, they deny their actions, they deny accountability. So it doesn't matter where they go, what they do, who they're with. It doesn't matter what you see on their social media. It's all fake, it's all lies, it's all BS, it's all nonsense. It's all an orchestration, it's all designed to manipulate you. As I've said before, narcissists, they come in, mirror you, they steal bits and pieces from you, they steal your characteristic traits. They use them to manipulate the next person, while simultaneously using your traits to punish you. Making you think that they're you and the news source is you, and they're doing you things without you. Because that's pretty much what they want. They were envious of you, jealous of you. They wanted to be you. They wanted to do what you do. But they can try to be you, they can try to find you in someone else. They can try to do the things that you do, but it's not going to bring them the same fulfillment as it does for you. Because the reality is that they're not you and they're never going to be you. All they can do is live a lie. All they can do is be fake. But that's one thing they can't do. And that is the one thing that we do. And perhaps that's one of the main reasons why they're never going to be anything like this. Because they don't show up, they can't be real, they can't be authentic. They can't take accountability. So how are they ever going to be anything like us? They're not. They're nothing like us. They're fakes, they're phonies, they're liars. And we're not. We're real, we're genuine, we're authentic. And maybe that's why they envy us, because we actually take accountability, we actually show up, we actually do the work, we actually do things right. All they do is just pretend to do things. They do pretend to be something that they're not. So maybe that's why they're so insecure. Maybe that's why they feel threatened and intimidated by us. But honestly, that's not your fault. It's not your fault that they're fake. It's not your fault that they're liars, they're phonies, they're manipulators. That's their own problem. And it's not your job to fix it. And it's not something that they're going to resolve you with the next person. Wherever they go, they're still going to be exactly the same. They're still going to have the same problems, the same sickness, the same disease. And they're never going to do anything about it. They'll just deflect it onto someone else. They'll blame the next person. But one thing they won't do is go within. They're never going to own up to their actions. They're never going to show up as themselves. And they're just always going to be fake. They're always going to be liars, phonies. That's always going to be them. So yeah, this is something all narcissists do at the end of the relationship. They always blame the victim. They always blame the person who they have been manipulating, exploiting, lying to, abusing. That's who they blame. They blame their source of supply. The person who they are dependent on. The person who is their parent, their caretaker, their life support machine. That's who they blame. But yeah, let me know in the live chat, have you been through the discard phase with the narcissist yet? Did they blame you for everything? What did they blame you for? Despite how they treated you all of that time, despite everything you did for them, they blamed you in the end. And this is why you should realise and how it's really the opposite of how it is with us. Because with the narcissist, the person who is the closest to them, the person who has the relationship with them, the person who does everything for them. I mean, you could be working every day, working 2-3 jobs, taking care of the kids, cleaning the house, making all the money, taking them on trips around the world. They could be doing nothing, just sitting on the couch all day, abusing you, complaining about you. You're the one who gets blamed for everything. And meanwhile, they're idealising someone else. They may be sleeping with someone else behind your back. Or they're doing all of that to you. And telling everyone about it. Telling everyone that you're the problem. So then they have this swift, smooth transition to the next person. Because now everyone's looking at you like it's your fault. And now they're looking like, good for them that they found someone else. They found something better. This is what they do every time. And this is why I say it's always the person on the side, the secondary source, the person who doesn't get into a relationship with them. They always get the best out of the narcissist. And I've been that person as well many times. Although, what I will say is that it's always fake. And it's the person closest to them, the person that's in a relationship with them, they get to see the real them. Because they're comfortable around that person to reveal the true person underneath the mask. Aaron Michaels says, you said it, Christopher. I was quite literally her lifeline. Getting used to speeding the highway to get her to the hospital, all that jazz. I'm not sure why you had to speed on the highway to get her to the hospital. But in some ways, I think maybe that's what we all should have done. Speed on the highway, get them to the nearest mental hospital. Well, that's the best thing for all of them. Amanda Surley says, I discarded him, blocked him everywhere, and left in complete silence, no warning, nothing. No doubt he would have blamed me, no idea. Never admitted to stealing my money. He definitely did. Yes, that can be a good way to leave the narcissist, by discarding them, just blocking them and just leaving. But sometimes they may manage to track you down, so you do have to be careful. As for stealing money, yes, remember narcissists have no boundaries. They lack a sense of self, they lack self-awareness, they lack empathy, they're exploitative, they're grandiose, they feel entitled. These are all narcissistic traits that drive them to steal money from people. Tit Predict says it perpetuates their disorder. They get worse. Yeah, it does, of course, when they're not taking accountability. I mean, the only reason they're able to do these things, well, they get you to overextend yourself. They get you to do more and more for them while they do less and less for you. While they're abusing you, exploiting you, crossing your boundaries. They're only able to do that because they lack a sense of self. They lack self-awareness. They lack empathy. That's how they're able to do that, because they have this disorder, as you mentioned. So of course, when they engage in these types of behaviors, they're just reinforcing their disorder. Bullies are at a 10 to 25 times risk of developing a psychiatric condition more than their own victims. This has been clinically proven. So when they engage in these types of behaviors, when they're bullying you, intimidating you, abusing you, they're just reinforcing their own mental illness. They're just becoming even worse. And of course, they're taking that onto the next person. So if they discard you, if they leave, or if they try to do a reverse discarding you, which is where they get you to discard them, you should just say good riddance. All of that trauma, all of that baggage is out of your life. You don't have to deal with that anymore. All of the ways that it made you feel. It made you feel worthless, insignificant, like you could never be good enough. You could never help or fix this mental illness that they have. That you were blamed for everything. It's like you could never do anything right. You don't have to worry about that anymore once they're gone. And that's someone else's problem. Kaz King says the nicer you are to them, the more they treat you like #IT. Yes, that's true. And that's why the person who gets the best treatment from them, the person who has the least problems with them, is the one who just shuts them out. You just set strong boundaries, you just say no right at the start, don't let them in. The person who deals with them the least gets the best out of them. It's as simple as that. The closer they get to you, the more involved they are in your life, the more problems that you will have. Aaron Michaels says they genuinely love cheating. Sick, disgusting creatures, reprobates. Yes, many of them are cheaters. There's no loyalty with these narcissists. I mean, think about it. They're not even loyal to themselves. They operate with a false character. If they're not even loyal to themselves, how are they going to be loyal to anyone? They all cheat. Not all, but most of them cheat. There will be the rare few that won't cheat. But even then, even those, they may emotionally cheat. And emotional cheating is even more damaging to the relationship than physical cheating. Predict says road rage is narcissist one-on-one. Yes, as Dr. Rowley mentioned, it's mostly narcissists who engage in road rage. And I did upload a reel on my Instagram a few weeks ago from when I was in Taiwan last year. And it shows this man engaging in road rage with me to where he was hitting the car. And this video is already approaching 20,000 plays. You can see that on my Instagram. If you follow me, it is Narc Survivor YouTube. But yeah, these narcissists will engage in road rage. They're the types of people who will just cut you off the road. They will beep at you excessively. Narcissists are no different on the road. It's just all about them. But also, they're the types of people who, when they're in a car or when they're on the computer, they're behind a keyboard, they can be very different to if they're talking to someone in person. Then they may be more charming and more manipulative. When they're behind a keyboard, when they're in their car, then they're just disconnected. Then it's all about themselves. Then it makes it easier for them to objectify people. GH says, is it true narcs love to stare down at people? Yes, there is something called the narcissistic stare. And also something I learned from the behavior panel, something that narcissists, sociopaths and psychopaths often do, is the romancer, where they just stare in someone's eyes. They're trying to read into what they think of them, if they believe their story. They're seeking approval because they need you to agree with them. They need you to believe in them. That's very important to narcissists. Now, as for us, we don't really care what they think about us. We don't need their validation, their approval. It doesn't matter. All we need is our own validation. And they know that, they can see that. That's why they target your self-esteem, because it's not like that for them. They need you to be dependent on them. They need you to trauma bond with them and seek their validation, because they're heavily dependent on yours. They cannot live without it. They need you to validate them. They need you to agree with them. They need you to see things the same way that they do. They need you to see yourself the way that they do. They need you to see them the way they want you to see them. That's very important, specifically to narcissists. Anyone says low to zero empathy combined with a little to no consciousness is dangerous. Yeah, you're right. It's not just the empathy, it's also they're barely even conscious. They're like these lifeless zombies. There's no life inside of them. It's like the lights are on, but nobody's home. There's no one in there. They lack self-awareness. And this is a known trait of narcissists, is that most of them lack self-awareness. They're not even aware of themselves. They don't even know who they are. They can do something to you, and it's like they're not even aware that that's connected to them, that their own actions that they performed with their own words or their own behaviors, it's like they're not even aware enough to identify that that's them, that's connected to them. That's something that they have done. And this is why there's just no getting through to them. You're better off talking to a brick wall. It's like the lights are on, but nobody's home. They can say something to you, and then a moment later say they never said that. And they may really believe it, even if they took a lie detector test. They wouldn't be able to detect it. Because they gaslight themselves, they're in denial. They're in a completely different world in their minds. And they can only function and interact with people if they pull them into this world that has no basis in reality. This is why many of you become so confused. You've been gaslighted. And then you find these communities because you're just looking for some sense, some logic. Because it's like, all of this time you've been in crazy town. Laura Hell says 2 months later, I passed him on the street and he came up all smiles and acted like none of it happened. Yes, I've done a video on that. It's titled, The Narcissist Will Come Back Like Nothing Happened. And this is another sign that you know you're dealing with a narcissist. Because who else is going to do that? Who else is going to have such a lack of self-awareness to where they can come back all happy like they've done nothing wrong, like they did nothing to you? And as I said at the beginning of the video, it doesn't matter how much you did for them or how much they abused you. It doesn't matter how extreme it was. Just give it a bit of time. They can come back, as you said, all smiles, acting like none of it happened. No self-awareness. They're not connected to reality. They're in a fantasy world. They're completely delusional. And yet we wonder why most of the time they're very angry, very miserable. Thank you for the donation, Koenago. Koenago says, read the book of the lie. They are possessed. I don't really like to say too much about that. I mean, I have mentioned in past videos that, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they are possessed, if there are demons involved. But I'm really looking for the science, the evidence. And of course, it's very difficult to prove that. What I believe is that they definitely have a lot of trauma and are clearly broken, damaged people. People who do not want to go within or do the inner work. They don't see it as though it's worth investing in themselves. So they're just trying to get everything from everyone else. And in some ways, yes, we could say that they sold their souls because they're fake. They're disingenuous. They deceive people. Give the video a thumbs up if you find it helpful so far. Very important, as it helps the YouTube algorithm to get this video out there so that other survivors of narcissistic abuse will see this as well. So very important, please give it a thumbs up. Aaron Michaels says they are absolute failures of parents. They take their misery out on their own children. For what? Because they had to go through it. Yeah, that's exactly right. I've got a playlist of videos on the narcissistic parents. And that's exactly what they do. When you start to wake up, when you start to expose them, when you start to realize what your narcissistic parent has been doing to you your entire life, that's what they do at the end. They blame you. They scapegoat you. They smear your name to everyone because they don't want anyone to know, to find out the secrets of what they've been doing to you throughout your childhood, how they've been abusing you. It's just exactly what they do. They lack empathy, they're exploitative. There's nothing inside of them that stops them and tells them that this is wrong. There's nothing that makes them stop. And so they just keep going. And by doing that, it just fuels their disorder even more. It normalizes it to them. But just because it normalizes it to them, it doesn't mean that it's not normal. Or rather, it doesn't mean that it is normal. And of course, it still affects the child, and it affects the parent as well. It makes things very toxic. But yeah, narcissistic parents, they are the definition of failed parents. They do the opposite of everything that they should do for their child. Thanks again for the donation, Koenago. Koenago says they are vessels for literal demons, explains the evil. Aaron Michaels says they possess every characteristic Satan has. I'm sure I mentioned that myself in one of my earlier videos. It may have been one of the videos in my religion and spirituality playlist. But yeah, you're right. I mean, in all the scriptures, every trait that is mentioned about Satan, these narcissists possess. They're manipulative, they're deceptive, they tempt and entice you, they're arrogant. I'm sure there's many more traits as well. I can't think of them off the top of my head. But I'm sure it just goes on and on. I mean, they're exactly the same as how Satan is described in the scriptures. They're no different. Aaron Michaels says these creatures would murder you if they could get away with it. Yes, what you see from them, what you think you know about them, that's only the tip of the iceberg. They only let you see a certain amount, even when you think you've seen the mask come off. Most of you probably haven't. Even when you've seen them rage at you, that's just a slip of the mask, not the entire mask coming off. They are very evil. And yes, many of them, probably the only reason why it didn't go so far as for them to murder you is because of the law. Because they don't want to get in trouble. Because they're very worried about their false image. And that may be the only reason why. That may be the only thing that stops them. Because many narcissists in this world have murdered their victims. Because they thought they could get away with it. Or maybe some of them, psychopaths, they didn't care too much about their image. Just look at Chris Watts. And that's the thing as well. It's not that they're not going to murder someone to defend themselves. It's not that that they're under attack. It may be that the false self is under attack or it threatens being exposed. But deep down, it's just because they hate themselves so much. They can't stand themselves. And you are a mirror reflecting back to themselves who they are. And they just want to destroy that reflection. And that's why they want to destroy you. Because of what you reflect back to them about themselves. Exposing LOL Cow says, I've watched you since June 2020. You have helped me so much. Thank you. I'm glad I could help, and thank you for the support. I had a long walk today. I walked very far. 1 hour out, 1 hour back. I went to a park, a restaurant for some food, and I went to the pet shop to pick up some more food for Nala as well. So, really took it out of me today, over 2 hours of walking. And of course, a lot of weirdos following me around, harassing me as usual. Especially all of these creepy women. As I mentioned in my video yesterday, there's really nothing that you can do with these creepy stalkers, these predators. I mean, even me, I go out with shades on my eyes, even when it's not even sunny. I have earphones in. They try and walk out in front of me. I walk the other way, I look the other way. No matter what you do, they just don't get it. And it's because they're delusional. The more that you reject them, the more obsessed they become with you. Because then it just makes them feel even more insecure, and then they want to get your validation. They just want to think that you want them. And they can't handle rejection, they can't handle the fact that you don't. So they will do anything, they will tell themselves anything. Whatever they have to do to deny that fact. And this is why it could just really hurt your head. They can drive you insane when they come after you, they stalk you. They try to manipulate you. Because they're pulling you into some alternate reality and their fantasy of how they want things to be. But that really has nothing to do with you. And that's why it could just give you a headache. Because they're gaslighting you, they're telling you something that's not true. It's making you doubt your own memory, perception, and sanity. It's confusing you. But this is what they do, and there's nothing you can tell them. There's no getting through to them. Because again, as I mentioned in yesterday's video, a lot of these stalkers, these creeps, these perverts, it's not really so much to do with you, it's a fantasy that they have of you. They split off and they idealize you. Borderline. They think in extremes: good, bad, right, wrong, perfect, flawed. And of course, when they idealize you, they view you as perfect, while they're manipulating you at the same time. They're manipulating you, they're manipulating your emotions to get you to view them the way that they're viewing you. Because they don't like it. It's very intimidating for them. It overwhelms them. When they're in your presence and they view you as ideal, and they feel completely worthless, unnoticeable, insignificant. So then they try to reverse the roles on you. That's the process that's going on. Because otherwise, think about it. Why would they present themselves to you in that way? Why would they manipulate you? They're already on that frequency. They're already on that wavelength. You may just be minding your own business. You may be very innocent and unaware. You're just in your own world. You're not even bothered about them. You're just thinking about what you want to do. And they notice you, even though you're not trying to be noticed. You're not trying to get their attention. You don't even know that they're there. But they notice you. And it makes them feel a certain way. They feel inferior. They feel intimidated. They view you as this larger-than-life character. They idealize you. And then they're just thinking, all right, hold on. How can I get you to feel the way that I do? And then make you feel, and then I can feel the way that you do. So they want you to feel worthless, insignificant, not good enough for them now. Now they want to reject you because they already feel rejected by you. And then they want to get to feel how you felt before they manipulated you. How did you feel before they manipulated you? Well, you didn't even know that they were there. You were unconcerned, you were unbothered. You felt peace, you were just worrying about yourself. So that's how this dynamic works. That's how they switch it on you, they manipulate you. And then you're left feeling rejected, abandoned, not good enough. And then they go off feeling indifferent, apathetic, unconcerned. And that's how you felt before. So essentially all they've done is just stolen your energy and emotions. They've just siphoned it out of you. And then they get to go off feeling good now because they're you in their minds. In reality, of course, they're not you. You're still you, they're still them. And that's why it's typically a matter of time until they come back to hoover you. Because deep down they know that. And after a certain amount of time, of course, that feeling, that thrill, that adrenaline rush, that hit of dopamine, it fizzles out, it goes away. And of course then you get to recharge because you go back for yourself and you practice self-care, you look in the mirror, you realize how wonderful you are. And then they got to go back to themselves, they look in the mirror, they realize what an absolute state they are. So of course they got to hoover you. Of course they got to try and find a way to get back in. Because you're still you and they're still them. This is why they do the things that they do. Because initially they idealized you, they viewed you as perfect, they felt unworthy of you, they felt inadequate. That's why they had to manipulate your emotions. That's why they had to reverse the roles on you. Because they wanted you to feel the way that they do. And they wanted to feel the way that you do. They didn't want to feel obsessed. They didn't want to feel attached to you. They wanted to feel unbothered, unconcerned, indifferent, just as you do. And that's why they do the things that they do. It just reinforces their little delusion inside their heads, their little fantasy. That's never going to be true. They're never going to be you. They're always going to be the piece of crap that they are. And they know it. And that's why they've got to keep tabs on you. That's why they've got to watch and observe you, stalk and harass you. That's why they've got to do the things that they do. So yeah, I just wanted to finish off with that. Because I know this is something that a lot of people think about. You may wonder, why do they do these things? It's like, why are they coming on to you just to then devalue or discard you? Why are they harassing you for? Just to then blame you. So that's it. That's why they do it. It's as simple as that. So, yeah. I hope this brought some clarity to you. Got Nala here. Nala is now not eating any dry food. I've cut it off completely. Because I researched and I found out that the dry food, the kibble, can make a UTI even worse. Now, she hasn't had any problems with the litter tray since the last time I talked about it a few days ago. I've just been giving her wet food every day, putting the apple cider vinegar in it. Unfortunately, this morning she did vomit. But I believe that that's not because of the UTI, as it was just after I gave her the apple cider vinegar in her food. So I may have just given her just a few drops too many. But otherwise, I mean, even if she does vomit a little bit, that's not so bad as long as it's treating the UTI, because that could be a lot worse. But yeah, she seems to be getting better. I haven't noticed any issues with the litter tray. So hopefully this condition should improve. She's looking good, she's looking healthy. Alright, that's it for this live video. Give it a thumbs up if you found it helpful. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Hit subscribe and click all notifications to be notified when I go live again. Donations are greatly appreciated, no matter how small. You can donate to my PayPal. It is paypal.me/Narc Survivor. If you would like to book a one-on-one, just head to my website. It is narcsurvivor.co.uk. And follow me on Instagram, where you can see some Japanese castles that I visited, and also some mountains that I went to in Japan. And also pretty soon I will be uploading some content from my trip earlier this year to the Philippines. So all of that will be on there soon as well. Follow me on Instagram. It is Narc Survivor YouTube. Thank you all for joining me on another live video, and I will talk to you soon.